Welcome to the Assured Expert interview series, in which we are talking about the future of security in next generation smart connectivity systems. I am Valentin Popescu from Artel Innovate, and today with me are Edlira Dushku and Benjamin Larsen from the Technical University of Denmark. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
My first question would be, can you please summarize what is the most urgent problem in cybersecurity research that you have been trying to solve in Assured?
In general, in security, from security aspect, it's very important to consider security by design principle. So whenever we design a new device or new applications, it's important that security is taken in consideration from the very early stages. However, we are now experiencing ever-expanding attack surface. So there are many attacks and they are targeting systems. So we cannot actually guarantee that our devices or applications are not going to get compromised. So it is also important to have some security techniques to detect compromised devices. In this context, Assured is mainly focused into designing solutions that are able to verify the integrity of these systems. So our main contribution to the Assured project is into designing integrity verification schemes to check whether the device or a component in the Assured is following the legitimate operation and is doing what is intended, what is designed to do.
How these components that you mentioned help achieve the overall vision of Assured towards sustainable security?
Sustainable security is buzzword, I would say. Now everyone is many projects are going towards achieving it, because it's important to not design security only for certain assumptions, I would say, but also to have future-proof security solutions. So to design security for a system that can work in a long term. Assured works towards this goal. So the security solutions or mechanisms that we try to develop in Assured aims to be future-proof. With this, I mean, for example, Assured aims to avoid the presence of a centralized party. So we have a self-management identity system, and we rely also on credential verification in order to guarantee that we can verify the authenticity of the credentials without having a centralized party that verifies that. So sustainable security is very general, and there are many aspects of that, but this is what we have been mainly focused on.
What are the challenges that you had to consider? Did you identify any possible vulnerabilities and attacks against these types of systems?
We used TPMs in our setups as a root of trust for the whole system. TPMs are extremely versatile. They can be used for so many things. The challenge with them is they are not that easy to understand. It's not that easy to program to it, which means a lot of the challenges, a lot of the vulnerabilities have not been found yet, because not a lot of people are using it. It's primarily Microsoft, Google, vendors that actually develop platforms that use these. So of course, when we started using trust platform modules, we also found some challenges. One of the challenges was a hash loop, which is basically a self-referencing piece of code which made the TPM go a little blah blah. It never really worked. So of course we reached out to the TCG, we instructed them this is what happens, and they were like, okay, that's a problem. so they made recommendations to the community how to solve this problem. So that was one of the first vulnerabilities that we met. The next one was a more physical problem. So the TPMs are generally the same, nevertheless, of the vendor. The only thing they can compete on is physical security and, of course, speed and stuff like that. So you'd expect the TPM to be pretty tamper resistant. As part of this project, we, of course, when we say, hey, a TPM is a brilliant thing, let's use it everywhere, we, of course, decided to test that, of course. Well, we were pretty surprised when we found out that most TPMs are not that tamper resistant. Basically, you'd think a security chip, you'd have the leads, the actual soldering leads, you'd have them underneath so you cannot connect to them. But if you open up any motherboard, you'll see, hey, it's just a standard chipset. So we thought, hey, there was this BitLocker attack some years ago where you could actually solder to the TPM and you could do stuff with that. And we decided, hey, let's try it. Let's see if the TPM actually recognizes it or if the Southbridge recognizes it. It didn't. So we, of course, continued working into that. And about now, we have proven that the secure boot is a problem when TPMs are not protected. And that's a big outcome of this project. Hey, we're showing the community that, okay, secure boot, BitLocker, all of this is beautiful, but you gotta protect your physical hardware. And when we said that in the beginning of the project, people were laughing at us and saying, hey, this is a nation state attack. This is very complicated. Now go on YouTube and you'll see a 15-year-old boy actually executing this attack. So we've moved the actual mindset of the community over these last couple of years. And I think that's very interesting.
One other question would be, what types of computing platforms are affected by such attack, and what is the impact and how it can affect the future security landscape?
Well, it's a big threat to a lot of platforms. Every platform that has a physical discrete TPM is vulnerable to this. Even worse. A lot of motherboards have this connector, so you can download a module TPM and just put in, so you can actually get Windows 11, for example. But if you do that, it's the easiest thing in the world to put an interposer between that and the connector and do an attack. So that is a horrible sign. So almost every platform is vulnerable to this. There is the possibility that you could have a firmware-based TPM, so you'd actually have the TPM as part of the CPU chipset. The problem with this, in my opinion, is that you take all of your roots of trust, storage, reporting, and measurement, and you put it inside one chip, the CPU. That means you only need to attack one thing, and it's very complicated to secure because it's such a large chip, both physically and logically. And then you can basically render all of the roots of trust vulnerable. That's a big issue. That's a big issue. So a lot of platforms are affected, and a lot of the industry is affected. For example, Google uses TPMs in their data centers. And yeah, while it might be hard for an attacker, for example, you and me, we can't go into the data center and start soldering. But with one of the proof of concepts that we're developing right now, we're creating 3D printable electronics, which can basically just connect to the TPM like that, so you don't have to solder. And now think of an angry employee, an employee that thinks, oh man, I hate Google so much, they're not paying me enough. They could basically ruin Google's data center without them knowing. That's a big problem. So yeah, it's a big problem.
How can the technologies of Assured help towards sustainable security, especially for enabling the vision of self-sovereign identity management?
Well, one of the things that we worked on in the self-sovereign identity management was a wallet application, which can basically hold your credentials, for example, your driver's license, your social security card, your banking cards, and all of that. And you can create a digital proof to anyone who wants to know. And you, as a holder, you decide what information you want to share. For example, if I'm going down to the post office and saying, "Hey, I got mail. I want to pick up my packet," they say, "Hey, can you show some ID? I want to know that you are the one who you say you are." So I take my social security card, and now that clerk has all my information. Not necessarily a good thing. So the assured way of doing this is we are using known cryptographic systems, in this case, direct anonymous attestation, and using that together with these kind of credentials. So any issuer, anyone who wishes to issue anything can basically take this data blob of attributes and send it to you. And you can provide that to anyone, but you choose which information to share. So for example, only your address, only your name. The verifier, for example, the clerk can then look at this, verify that it came from this particular issuer, and it's valid. And the way we've done all of this in Assured is we bind this to the hardware itself. That means even me as a person, I would not be able to share, for example, with my wife, or I cannot take my driver's license and share it with you, which would be absolutely horrible since I don't have a driver's license. So that was a big step, and we're one of the first that actually does this while still preserving anonymity. So for example, if I give you my name from my social security card, you can verify that. And then I give Edlira my name from my social security card. You just know it's Benjamin, but even if you guys collude, you will not be able to say, okay, it's the same Benjamin. You have no idea. And that is game breaking. Like, this is the next level. And that is where Assured is pushing the industry and research to go towards this direction, where we actually also see the user itself as some kind of threat, which is something we need to do in the industry as general.
You've done a lot of work so far, and looking at this project, what kind of technical challenges, if any, have you faced?
Technical challenges, yeah. if there weren't any challenges, it would be a very boring job. I think we have had plenty of challenges. I think one of the interesting one was when we take this credential management, we put it on a phone. A phone in general does not have a TPM. Okay, so we had to kind of virtualize it. And these processes not that difficult, not that easy to implement that in. So we actually had to take the reference code, put it inside the phone, and try to emulate it that way. But I think having this assumption that we need a TPM is both good and bad. The bad side is we can't really have that assumption of all devices. For example, a Mac computer doesn't have a TPM. It has a, I believe, T2 or T1 a security chip, which doesn't work the same way as a TPM. So, of course, that's a technical challenge. But I would say when we're covering, what, 60, 70, 75% of the devices out there, and we've showcased that this works on low-level IoT as well, I think we're pretty good. But it's a technical challenge that you depend on a particular chip. But of course, we've also made work with trusted execution environments. We've looked into trusted execution environments, also seen that, okay, it has to depend on some things of the hardware, not necessarily a TPM, but at least something physical. We need to trust something, and you cannot trust something that can be manipulated. So you need physical things.
And now a more general question. Is there anything additional about what you have achieved in Assured that we haven't covered?
In Assured, we have designed different attestation approaches, starting from low-end devices that are IoT devices, for example, and they are generally considered to be heterogeneous. So they have different computational power and they come with different device architecture. As Benjamin said, we have different assumptions about the root of trust, especially when it comes not only for powerful devices that can support the TPM, but also for very low-end devices that do not have the architecture and the space, but also they are designed to be low cost, so they cannot support the presence of a TPM. So in that case, we have to rely on some minimal root of trust. And considering that we have to design different attestation approaches that rely on different architectures, but also on different attack scenarios, that completely changes the protocol. So we designed many different protocols that cover different aspects on that case. And in general, we tried also to especially consider privacy in these protocols. And I think that some of our schemes are the first ones in this direction to consider privacy in IoT devices, which was never covered before in the literature, to the best of our knowledge. And we also extended this work to more complex attestation protocols that attest not only the software, for example, that is running on the device, but also to consider not only the static software, the binaries, but also to consider also detection of runtime attacks, that they reuse the legitimate code is on the device, and to extend these approaches in more large-scale systems. As we know, Assured considers a very large-scale system, and considering that we have different many heterogeneous devices from IoT to powerful devices, we also designed a swarm attestation scheme that considers this different attestation in these different devices with privacy in mind. So I think these are the in very high level what we have been mainly covered.
Thank you very much, and good luck in the future with the project.
Thank you.